Hey everybody, I'm Tara Bassett and so glad to see you on Take It From Tara this afternoon. And I have a stellar group of people surrounding me. If you just sit back and relax, you're going to have such an entertaining and educational afternoon. And the reason that I brought these four people here is because they are going to be the ones deciding your fate, should you ever end up in district court. So very, very important to know. So starting from my left, your right, is Judge Sean Delahanty. Hello, Judge. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
And Tracy Davis to my immediate left. Hi.
Hey,
How are you? Give everybody a shout out. Lisa Langford, great to have you with us too.
Thank you so much.
Kristina Garvey. So now let's make it clear who's running against whom. We've got it diagonal. We got Tracy versus Kristina in the big smash down. We've got Sean versus Lisa in the second one. And two different districts are being represented. So we've got a lot going on and we're going to just jump right in. First thing I want you to know is we've done several of these. Let's just start out in March. When we were starting the whole primary thing, we thought we're going to just do a judges panel. We're going to teach people what it means to be a judge. And then all of a sudden this fall, we had this massive awakening as to what the judicial branch of government really meant. So with that in mind, we've done more judges panels. And one of the things that we've really, really enjoyed doing is educating the public on what it means to be in a position where you're voting for a judge. So the first thing I have to tell you is here's your ballot, okay? You're doing all your stuff. Flip it over. Why is that? Would you like to tell Tracy why is that?
Because all of the judicial races are on the back of the ballot. The nonpartisan races are on the back of the ballot.
Tricky, tricky, tricky.
Yes.
So you do not, under any circumstances, want to walk out of that voting booth without filling out the nonpartisan races. That's another thing. Lisa, do you want to explain what nonpartisan means to people?
That means that we may have affiliation with Democratic Party or Republican, but in this particular race, that is not a factor. So we don't even discuss that.
Yeah, so no matter what party you are, it doesn't matter when you're a judge in district court in Louisville. So that's what we're going for. When you talk a little bit about district court, Judge Delahanty, I'm going to ask you to explain this because you are a sitting judge. What's the difference between district court and all the rest of the courts?
Well, district court is the first trial level in the state of Kentucky's court system. We handle traffic offenses, misdemeanors. We screen cases for the circuit courts. We have exclusive jurisdiction over juvenile court, all juvenile matters, all probate matters, all mental inquest matters, all disability matters. And when people say they're going to court, if your friend says, I've got to go to court, 95% of the time they're coming to district court.
Wow.
We are a high volume court.
So that's what it is.
Yes.
The busiest court in the land is what
Yes.
you're telling me. So I guess what it comes down to then, Kristina, if you are going to be in a court that involves all of the very, look at this. Juvenile matters, city and county ordinances, misdemeanors, violations, traffic offenses, probate of wills, arraignments, felony probable cause hearings, small claims involving $2,500 or less, civil cases involving $5,000 or less, voluntary and involuntary mental commitments in cases related to domestic violence and abuse, district judges serve 4-year terms. How do you learn all that stuff? How do you know how to, is just like a typical attorney know how to do all this?
No, I think any of us start out practicing and you've got an area that you're more familiar with, an area that you might have more familiarity with because that's what you did every day. But as you get, I think as the judges, and we see that, I can't think of many judges sitting on the bench now who was doing all of those things before they got there. Judge Delahanty is raising his hand.
That's pretty funny.
And there is a lot to learn, and we all have different backgrounds and expertise. And I think over time you see, just in the times that the judges sitting on the bench now, you see them grow, you see them become more comfortable.
Absolutely.
They move around into the different courtrooms, and it might take them a little bit longer if that's not what they practiced originally. But you see them grow and you see them learn the trade, and so it takes work on the judge's part to continue learning, and it takes work on the attorneys that come before them to help educate them too. Sometimes those are the best people to educate the judges on different topics because they know more about what they're arguing that day. So.
All right, I'm going to start out by giving you, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a chance to get into the whole conversation. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start with you, Tracy, 2 adjectives to best describe you.
I would say determined, and I would say hard worker.
You have to be both of those things to survive this. And I have to tell you, when Shelley Santry was sitting in this seat, every time somebody would give 2 words, she would go,
Right.
oh, my other 2 words. So whatever it is that anybody says, feel free to repeat it. It's okay. Miss Lisa.
I would say ethical and even-tempered.
Good one. Excellent. Judge Delahanty.
Well, for me, it's fair-minded and experienced.
Good.
That's good. Mine, I would probably also go with hardworking, and then the other one that I would go with would be consistent as far as across the board, no matter who I'm dealing with.
That would be what I think would be one of the hardest things is how in the world do you make a decision based on something that you just absolutely do not agree with? It's against every principle that you have, but the law says that you have to do it. How do you make a decision like that?
Well, I think that one of the things that you have to remember is that when you take the bench, that's a role. And so there was, one of my professors told me that when you put on the robe is what stands between you, the person, and your office of the judiciary. And so when you sit there, you look at the rules and you listen and you take in the facts and you make a decision that is within, that realm that you have. There's a small amount of discretion, but at the end of the day, the reason that the rules are the rules and the laws are the laws are so that they can be as best, brought forward in a fair and ethical way, so that you don't have some decisions way over here and other ones right there. So I think if the person takes that seriously, which is why in Kentucky these races are nonpartisan, because it's not about party affiliation, you treat each and every person with the same respect and dignity.
Wow, that's amazing. And by the way, we're not debating here. This is just a discussion because I wanted you guys to get to know everybody who is running for judge in these 2 particular divisions, and we're just going to have this wonderful conversation. If any of you want to pop in on what somebody else has just said, feel free to do it, but just remember there's no right or wrong, and we are all going to be nice. If you decide you're going to post on this Facebook Live, be aware of the fact that I can and will block you. So there will be no nasty comments, because there have been in the past, and some take it from Tara's, not necessarily judges' panels. They've been very well behaved, but if there are any issues that come up, I'm going to block you, and you're not going to get to say anything again. Hunter Sadich has tuned in, and Jürgen Tossman, Michelle James, and 11 other friends are already watching us, so this is pretty cool. I think that one of the things that I'm most interested in knowing, and this is kind of an important thing, is when you, Lisa, I'm going to go to you next, when you are a district judge and you have the full docket that we were just talking about in the busiest court, what do you do to take care of yourself? I mean, there's got to be a tremendous amount of emotional stress that comes with being a judge over that many different types of cases. What do you do to take care of yourself?
In my particular case, my greatest love is my family. So, although they can be stressors as well, but spending time with my family is my true joy. And so I'm sure when I'm on the bench, I'm going to spend as much time with my family, vacationing, things of that nature. Certainly you have to have some kind of physical activity, walking, whatever it is you have to do. It is a very stressful position. Yeah. And I will say that the judges that are currently there do a great job at it. So.
Yeah, they do. Yes. Fantastic.
Hopefully it's not as hard as campaigning, because that has been.
Lord, I have watched all of you guys, and I am just in amazement. I think I saw Emily DeGeneres sleeping at McDonald's one day because she was so exhausted. But I think what the most important thing to realize is when it gets to the end, I mean, when this is over, you guys are probably going to want to sleep for a week. How quickly do you jump into the judge's seat? How soon do you get on the bench after winning? Judge Delahanty.
Well, this time for me it won't be any different. But when I was first elected, you take the oath of office on the first Monday in January. So for these 3, should they win, they will have between November 6th and I think it's January 6th is when the formal investiture or whatever the ceremony is, where all of us judges get sworn in for our next 4-year term.
Cool. But you have to be, what do you do in between? Do you have to learn how to do all this stuff in between?
Well,
November 6th and the 1st of January. Do you learn how to be a judge in 2 months?
Well, I think you learn, but I think that there's different roles. Like I'm in private practice. Judge Delahanty is obviously on the bench. Lisa and Kristina are both prosecutors in the county attorney's office right now. So for me, it will be a break and a rest because I am absolutely exhausted.
Kristina votes for that too.
Yes. And then for me, it will be trying to, because I do a lot of different, I do criminal cases as well as family court cases and things like that. So for me, it will be wrapping up my issues. It will be briefing, attorneys that I see best fitted for each one of my cases to let them know how to move forward. I'm trying to settle some of my criminal cases beforehand if we can prevent going to trial. So that will be the gist of what I will be doing, not taking on any new clients or whatnot. So I think it just depends on what role you have now.
Okay, and in the jobs that you guys have, that's slightly different.
And that's what I was just going to add. I've been in district court for 14 years.
Yes.
And I have been in every single courtroom with every judge. So I've been able to watch different judges and pick up their best practices. I even know how to work the computer system.
Oh my God,
all
you're
of
way
that.
ahead
But
of
I'm
the-
right. Not to
ahead of the
assume anything.
rest.
I mean, there will still be plenty to learn, trust me.
Sure.
But I feel more comfortable since I've been in those courtrooms for 14 years.
Very good.
Well, in more particular, I do believe that there is, and Judge Delahanty would know for sure, I believe there is a judges college
yes,
in
judicial
in
college,
December.
yes.
That
That's
new
helpful.
people elected will be going. I have
Right.
no idea. I've never heard anybody talk about anything that they actually teach there. The majority of stuff that I've heard from other judges who have come back has been those places out in the state are nothing like Jefferson County, and so I don't know what all happens as
Isn't
far
that
as
interesting? Well, I'm
the
going to be
judicial
interested in
college.
hearing that. Okay, I'm going to go to some specific questions that I have been asked to ask you, and we want to welcome Jane Cash and Melanie Clark and a whole bunch of other people who are starting to get the word. Shannon Favre is watching. Who knows Shannon Favre? Yeah, of course.
Hi,
Shannon Favre is the Favre law, and so she's keeping a very close eye on things to make sure that I do everything right. And I will. I'll take care of them, Shannon. You don't have to worry. No one has ever died in a Take It From Tara interview.
So far.
What is so far? Today could be a first. You never know. Judge Delahanty, what's the biggest factor in your life that has prepared you to be a judge?
Well, when you talk about the biggest factor, you had talked earlier about the experiences and attempting to prepare yourself to be a judge. And I was a lawyer for 18 years. I was in private practice. I represented clients in civil matters and criminal matters, both in state court and in federal court. I practiced in all areas of district court. As a lawyer, I handled probate cases, I handled juvenile cases, I handled MIW cases, I handled disability cases. I worked every day with clients in all of those jurisdictions. So that's what prepared me to become a judge. But at the same time, I thought, and I still do, that I was as prepared to become a judge as anybody who's ever run for judge because I had this various background in my legal profession. But the point there is that once you get the robe, it's an entirely different thing. It's great that and you practice in all areas of the jurisdictions of district court, but you have a new role, and that's to be the arbiter and to preside over these courts, which is a little bit different than practicing in the courts.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about. Once you put the robe on, it's such a cool thing because you think about, you're kind of in an acting position. You're
Sure.
kind of being the director of the whole thing. And Counselor Langford, I want to ask you this question because I do a little bit of research on everybody, just a little bit. You come from a two-parent college-educated household.
Yes, ma'am, that's
And
correct.
that's impressive for most people,
Yes,
especially. And research shows that that's going to give you a little bit of a leg up on your education and your career so far, which it obviously has.
Yes.
How are you going to help juveniles who don't have the same advantages as a result of decisions that you make to get out of your courtroom and never come back and don't come back as adults?
Very good question, Tara. And as you
Thank
said,
you. Thank you so much.
as you said, I'm a living example, and I'm very fortunate to have my brother and sister both who have master's degrees or above. So I certainly believe in sharing those experiences. I am open to initiatives of any kind, community involvement. I have been looking into, I have not ever been in juvenile court, I'll be honest and state that, but I'm of course certainly aware of it. But I mean, I think our children are so lost. There are programs that are for the children of those parents who are incarcerated. There are all kind of programs for the children that are in school to promote well-being. I see a lot of the judges visiting the schools, so I just want to be present. I want to share my experience and be involved in anything in the community that would teach me more about what needs to be done, and I will support any of those initiatives.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. And thank you for complimenting my question. I appreciate that. Tracy, every student out there is waiting with bated breath for you to answer this question.
Okay.
How did you get through law school with no student loans? Please tell me.
Well, like I said, I'm determined and I'm hardworking. And so when I decided to go back to law school, my children, I had graduated. I have a bachelor's degree in finance, so I'm a MST math techie person. But my children were all in elementary school, going into middle school, my oldest. And so what I did was I worked full-time at Humana. And Humana had a tuition reimbursement program.
Wow.
And so if anybody knows anything about being a single parent, you have to make sure that you're liquid as much as possible for as long as possible. And so what I did, I was a Clio scholar. So Justice Langford, back in 2007, when I started law school, there were 5 students picked from each of the Kentucky law schools, and that afforded us to get, I think it was $5,000 a year or something like that, and then my tuition reimbursement was $5,000, and it was per fiscal year. So that first year I was able to get back, for the 2007, 2008, 10.
Amazing.
And then what I did was every year when I filed my taxes, instead of me going out and splurging to, go on vacations and buy TVs and things like that, I generally took that money and I used it to save to go towards my tuition for that fall semester. And then I used it to pay for summer school, because when you're in the part-time program at Chase, in order for you to graduate on time, you have to go to summer classes. So it's a full year's thing. And so I did that, and then when people would say, what do you want for your birthday? I want a treatise.
Money?
I want a P member book. I want a CD. So
a bill paid.
Right, exactly. And so that's just, I kept it down, and I made sure that I was not splurging on anything. Because being that I commuted, I had to have gas money as well.
Yes.
And so I just was very, very, very responsible over my newly created debts.
There will be a seminar. You will be able to enroll. I am going to be organizing the seminar for a small fee.
Absolutely. CLE. Free CLE.
It will not be
Exactly.
reimbursed with tuition reimbursement.
It will not
Right.
be reimbursed. That's exactly right. Kristina, I have asked this question in the past 2 judges panels as a result of what we were discussing before our recent Supreme Court hearings. Can you describe appropriate judicial temperament?
Sure. The first thing that I would describe as good judicial temperament would be treating everybody that comes into your courtroom with dignity and respect. I think that everyone that comes in there is there for different reasons. And one awesome thing about being a judge is no matter what happens, you're going to get the last word. And so you're going to get the last word, and it's going to be your decision that stays. And so in my opinion, you've got everybody that comes in that has a job to do, and everyone's trying to do that job, whether it's for their client, whether it's for the Commonwealth, whether it's the clients that are, the defendants that are trying to get things done as far as to move forward with their lives, or the victims that are trying to get justice. Everyone's there for a reason. And so I think one of the best things is being able to keep in perspective what everybody's job is, because people you get a few attorneys in there and voices get raised and tempers get thrown, and same thing, it goes on both sides. But at the end of the day, you're there to make a decision, you're there to follow the law, and you get the last word. You don't have to be nasty about it. You don't have to be a jerk about it. You can be, with dignity and respect, you can treat them with that as far as from the bench, and I think that that's important for everybody.
And you get to hammer the mallet. That's the
and at the
best
end,
thing
you
of
get
all.
to hit it.
So, Judge Delahanty, what kind of training do judges have available to them that will help you to tell whether a person accused of domestic violence is actually telling the truth?
Well, and we had talked about it a little bit earlier, or Kristina did, about judicial college. As a judge, you're required to have continuing education every year. And part of our education, and we're required to have education regarding domestic violence cases. Because the domestic violence cases, the dynamics of the relationship between the parties is very complex and very difficult. Now, I personally have been sent out of state to some domestic violence conferences that were very intense. They were sort of three-day sessions, and to get all of the current information and the current approaches, and as well as there were probably 30 other judges who were going to the same educational experience, and there's feedback and best practices of the judges who have been handling these cases. So that's, and if you can get some advanced education, it's excellent. And but again, you have some sort of baseline education through the Jefferson County, or through the Kentucky State District Court Judges Association and their annual college, as well as the new college, the new Judges College. Every new judge is required to go to a college to try to get familiar with all of the jurisdictions of district court before they actually have to act as a district court judge.
So I'm getting an interesting comment from Jürgen Tossman, who is the director of Bunbury Theater. How in the world do we find information about these judges? Google searches do nothing. It's like a puzzle. Help. So what I found out last night is Googling their names isn't always the best thing to do, but if you say Kristina Garvey, judge, Tracy Davis, judge, candidate, Lisa Langford, voting for district judge, Sean Delahanty. If you put something with it, and even Louisville, that has helped me a lot too. But you guys all have your own websites.
Yes.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah. So are they all weird names, like vote for so and so, Kristina?
I just did like Mark Smith for. I'm kidding. Mine is www.garveyforjudge.com.
Garveyforjudge.com.
Langfordforjudge.com.
Easy.
VoteDavis2018.com.
Perfect.
I have two.
Of course we do.
JudgeSeanDelahanty.com or SeanDelahanty.com.
Okay, good. Jürgen, hopefully that answers your question.
And they can also check out our Facebook pages. Usually
Yeah,
there's more
that's good.
content on Facebook and on Instagram and different social media sites. And if you can get to the page that is the candidate page, you're probably going to find out more if you click the link to go to their personal page, because we all post a lot of stuff, a lot of events and different things like that, and scroll back past the filing so that you can find out who the person is as a person.
Right.
That's always what I advise, is to really do your character research as well.
And face it, social media has pretty much supplanted triple W's and supplanted websites,
Right.
and they're a pain in the butt to maintain. And when something goes wrong, you have to call somebody else unless you're an HTML guru.
Yes.
So we won't say anything about that, but we will. Tracy had a massive website meltdown that I saw at 1 o'clock this morning.
And she texted me about it.
I said,
at
"What?
1 o'clock.
I can't do any research on you because I can't get on your website." That was bad.
It was bad.
That's not
It
a
was
good
bad.
thing. And Facebook,
Yeah.
Facebook does not crash.
Does not. But
Mark Zuckerberg will not
Not-
let your
Never.
district judge
Never.
race be interfered with.
But we fixed it.
I know.
Last night.
You did. You did
Yes.
a great job
Thank
too.
you.
Kristina, what's going to separate for you the job from the person? We talked a little bit earlier about the emotions of self-care, needing to be a little bit more careful about what happens in the rest of your life, because I think there's probably a high burnout rate. I don't know about that, but I think there probably is. So how do you dispense justice by day and sleep every night?
I actually feel like I'm dealing with that a little now. For the last year and a half, I've been a domestic violence prosecutor, and so most of my days are spent interviewing victims, talking with attorneys, arguing things in court, and so you see a lot of things that are bad things happening in our community, and you see a lot of people going through things that you want to fix and you can't fix it.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things that, there's cases and victims that we talk to that don't want our help, And a lot of times it's for various reasons. It's not always for the same reasons that people might think. But that's a hard thing to deal with, and to see things, and then to get on the news sometimes and see. I mean, we've got a pretty high rate right now of domestic violence homicides this year, and a lot of those have touched people in our office. They touched the judges who are making decisions every day. And all I can say is, whether it's in my job now or whether I'm elected and it's as a judge, you make the best decision you can with the information that you have. And then when I go home, I've got 6 nephews and a niece, all under 10, who are awesome distractions from life. I mean, you show up and they call me TT. And so you would think that I was the coolest person in the world, and they judge on nothing. All they want to do is play basketball or chase, or Quinn wants to show me everything that she can do. And that is a great distraction from everything that's happening. And you realize, you know, that you can do good work during the day, but that you can't fix everything. You do the best you can, then you go home and you try to take care of your family and be a good person and role model for the youngsters.
And I know you've got family too, Tracy. So how do you maximize your effectiveness on the bench, especially since we were talking about what a huge docket and a busy room that place is?
Well, I think a big difference too is that when you're in private practice, and I think Judge Delahanty can describe to that, my day doesn't end when court is out. That's when I'm going back home, I'm reviewing email, I'm, you know, texting clients, I'm drafting, I'm meeting with clients, things of that nature. And so I think that with it being something that's more confined to hours out of the week, that it's easier, I would believe, to be able to kind of schedule some of those things out. Can you repeat the question again?
I just wanted to know how you maximize. You're tired. You've been campaigning too hard. That took a lot of guts.
It did. I'm very honest, and I'm a very open person.
Well,
so yeah, I lost my thought.
You were on track.
I was.
While we're being interrupted here, sir, can I get you to turn that music down just the tiniest bit? Thank you. They're doing great, but my brain is going 40 different directions. Maximizing your effectiveness on the bench.
Okay. I think that one of the other things that you do is, you know, everyone comes from, you are an accumulation of your life's experiences in the totality.
Yes.
And, you know, as unbiased as we try to be and as unbiased as we work to be, you still are an accumulation of everything that you've been through.
Right.
And so I think that for those times, because all of our backgrounds are pretty much different, but I think that, you know, if there's someone who was before you, and like if you've never been, like Lisa and I both grew up in homes, and Kristina as well, and Judge Delahanty, we all grew up in homes with both parents. So
Isn't that
that's a
amazing?
different,
Me too.
right, so that's a different perspective to be able to see someone who may or may not have done that, or may not have had that. But me being a single parent, I've had to do it all. So that gives a different perspective, as well as Lisa. And I think that in those ways, when you aren't as familiar, you do like I did, and you humble yourself and you ask the questions. You go to your colleagues who may have had that experience. You go out into the community. You volunteer. You figure it out. That way, when you're making these decisions, they're informed decisions, because if you don't know why a person's doing what it is that they're doing, trying to change that behavior, trying to make sure that you know whether to give grace or to render judgment is a big issue, because the why does oftentimes matter. So I think that those are things that that I will do, and that I think that all people in that position should do to maximize the effect.
And just to jump in real quick,
Please.
I was thinking the same thing about the peer support. I would certainly hope, and I'm sure, that judges support each other, and we're able to. I know prosecutors, we all go out and eat dinner, and we think we're going to talk about
I thought you were
something
going
else.
to say
And
prosecutors just kill each other and cut
we
throats.
end up we seem
have
to
a lot of fun
get away
together.
from work, but the
Exactly.
whole dinner becomes work. We're
That's
talking
nice.
about cases that we had, and I certainly would believe that our judges would mentor the new judges. So
Absolutely.
I'm just looking forward to that type of support.
So I have a question for you, Lisa. Why are endorsements so important to voters? I mean, why does it matter if I've asked this question before, the union of widget makers is supporting you?
And I'm not certain that they are. I'll be honest, I don't have any endorsements. I came on the scene, kind of decided quickly that I wanted to run, and I don't have a campaign manager. I'm a team of me. So
I like that,
without having a campaign manager, I was not aware of all the different endorsements that I needed to apply for, and therefore, I started finding out about it a little late. So because of that, I currently don't have endorsements, and I have a great following. I did very well in the primary, and that was with no endorsement. So to say it's important, I think it is. I think certainly you want those groups following you and those members, but I don't feel like it's necessary for you to succeed.
Okay, Kristina,
Yes.
why should judges be appointed or elected, and why?
To be honest, I actually had people talking about this as I've gone out to different events, and I think that you get the same types of results no matter what direction you go. We have a governor now who has appointed several judges in our district and circuit court,
Yes.
and you had people all over the place of, I can't believe this, they're not electing the people, or they're not appointing the people that maybe the courthouse would appoint. I think the same is true with elections. A lot of times, one of the first things that my dad told me when I was starting to make a decision on whether or not I was going to run was the courthouse does not elect judges. And we all live in a bubble every day, and we know more about each other every day, and what we do in court, how we are, our knowledge and all of those things, probably better than anybody else in this community. But there's not enough people in the bubble to make a difference or an impact on elections, and I believe the same is true for appointments. So, I think that elections, at least it gives everybody a fair shot to work hard and to get out and try to get the people involved. And so, I would say I think elections are the way to go. To me, appointments, it changes with one election, and basically you're giving that power to the governor, and that would change, his appointments would change with, the term as far as that goes. So, I think just the problems that I see are just not being able to get people in the community educated. And to be honest, so many of them aren't that interested in judges' races because they don't want to talk about nonpartisan. We were talking about the Arrow Fund. They don't want to talk about dogs and stuff. They want to talk about, politics or the Kavanaugh hearings or, different things that are happening, and they want your opinions, and they're just nonpartisan does not get people that excited.
And the Arrow Fund is so much more important.
It is.
Saving severely abused, neglected, and tortured animals is much more important.
It is very important.
At least to me.
And they do a lot of vetting for that. I mean, there's
I know.
very detailed.
We could probably take to foster or adopt an animal, you have to go through so much more than you to be appointed a judge. So Jurgen Tossman,
or even elected.
So Jurgen Tossman says you have to know who is running, and sometimes that's difficult to find. This program helps, but I wonder how people who don't watch find the information. And we also want to thank Cree Majesty for watching, and Beth Sturgeon Northup. Thank you, Linda Poole Adkins, who is a huge homeless advocate. And I'm going to ask you guys a question, so start your brains working on that. Brian Hutchins is watching. Alan Miller, welcome. Lisa Fay and Sheila Bishop and Tommy Richardson. Cassie Simon from Washington, D.C. and Tanita Gaines, thanks for being with us. Brent Sample and Caroline Knopp. Simply PR, great PR person in the world right there. So Judge Delahanty, Kentucky's mental health crisis is staggering. And in the interest of full disclosure, I work in mental health for Bridgehaven Mental Health Services. And I would like all four of you to come and visit me because we provide alternatives to jail. And I'd like you to learn about that. 1 of 4 people is affected by mental illness in a loved one or themselves. And with about 75,000 Louisvillians walking the streets undiagnosed with mental illness, what suggested solutions other than an involuntary commitment or jail would you have to help some of these folks with mental illness who might come before your bench?
Well, you have to go back to the 80s when, as a national policy, we decided that we were no longer going to have mental institutions because they and there were some abuses in these mental institutions. And so the plan is, as a society, we decided that we were going to try to mainstream those people who have mental illnesses. Now, as a result, the Jefferson County Jail is the de facto mental institution. We have a lot of chronically mentally ill people who are arrested, and oftentimes they're arrested not because they're evil, but because they're mentally ill in public.
It's also the biggest detox facility in the city.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yes.
All right, and the thing of it is, that for a judge, all of the people who come before you in criminal cases, not all, but a vast majority have, decision-making problems. They're not the best thinkers in the world. They have made, for them to be charged with a crime, they've made at least a poor decision at that moment. You have to recognize that there is, some mental illness and people who are self-medicating or attempting to medicate through drugs to try to cope with their issues. So it's really important to treat everybody as an individual. And I enjoy having conversations with pretty much any defendant that comes in my docket. I'm now in a criminal docket. And the point is, there are ways that we can help them if they will accept help. Mm-hmm. We're fortunate in Jefferson County as the only urban court system in the state of Kentucky. We have resources, and most all of our resolutions in criminal cases include sort of a treatment component, whether it's alcohol or batterer's intervention for domestic violence cases or drug treatment, and we have this compliance issue. I mean, is the person in compliance with some of our suggestions to try to make their lives easier? And so the point is, you have to be cognizant of it, and you have to be prepared to attempt to have a discussion with everybody that comes before you. And because you do have a chance to truly improve somebody's life,
Right.
if you can communicate with them, I mean, you really have to, sort of jerk them out of their comfort zone. Otherwise, it's Charlie Brown's parents talking. And if you're not connecting with these folks, then you're not helping them with their lives.
Okay.
If I can add real fast,
go ahead.
I see a lot dealing with domestic violence and talking with victims, and they'll come in, and a lot of times they come in frustrated at the system, and they're like, we keep telling you guys, he needs this help or she needs this help. And the hardest part, though, is a lot of these people that are battling these issues don't have places to go outside of jail and also get these treatments.
Right.
And so when, I was talking about this the other day, and just wanting to reach out to community leaders and hope that we can find places, because they need a place to live that's going to help them get to their treatment, because so many of them are homeless or they can't go back because their they've got EPOs with people that they live with, or just because the mental health has gotten so out of control that they're not able to live in the houses where their family is. Well, when you let somebody out that has mental health issues, and they in jail, they might be more than willing to go get treatment, but once they get out and they're living on the streets, and the last thing on their mind is trying to get to that appointment because the judge said so, it becomes survival. And so, they're just trying to get a hot meal or, something. And so trying to find a place where it's more stable as far as their living, so that that's not what they're having to be concerned about is, staying warm or being fed. They can concentrate on getting help with the issues that they're having.
Well, we all know that homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness and alcoholism all go together. The unholy trio is what they call it. So you are going to be dealing with violence in your courtroom, Lisa.
Yes, ma'am.
And how are your decisions going to affect the amount of gun violence that we have in Louisville?
I am very concerned about the gun violence. We all know the levels of both shootings and murders, unfortunately, that have happened in our city. I certainly intend on, taking an extra hard look at those cases. the prosecutors that would be in my courtroom, I want to make sure that they're doing everything they can to get the officers there on the preliminary hearing dates and providing as much information as I can. I would certainly, I believe the police do a good job, and especially with gun cases, their citations that we receive currently are very explicit. 9 times out of 10, we are having hearings on what we call the 10-day date that is required if they're in custody. Judges also set bail, set bonds, and I certainly will look at everything, including the tool that we have from pretrial services. That's one of the tools we use, but gun cases in my courtroom would be certainly very serious, and I would probably be having a high bail or bond on those because of the serious nature of those offenses.
So how hard is it, sorry Tracy, I'll let you follow up, how hard is it to get police officers to come to court? Because I've always heard that's one of the biggest challenges, because they're back out on the on the
that
street,
has
and they have, is that changed?
That has changed.
Okay.
And I think what you probably heard in the past was more towards traffic tickets, because there are just so many. I mean, we have the night court, and there are just thousands. So those officers, I think, were just, overwhelmed. But no, serious cases, felony cases, those officers are there.
They're
Absolutely.
there. Okay, follow up.
No, I was just going to chime in when we talked about gun violence. I know Lisa had said that she's not been in juvenile but she's been there forever. But I've practiced in juvenile court, being that I do family court and I do domestic violence from the other side of the spectrum. But to chime in, I think that one of the things that, especially from the district court bench, that we can do, because there are issues with repeat offenders and mental health or whatever, is have training on what to look at, because every case that is a gun case, it's not always, okay, they were trafficking guns or they were committing a robbery. There are times that you have children that are caught with guns, and they get, a license for carrying a concealed deadly weapon. There are times when someone may be pulled over and not know that there was a gun in the car, and then the issue is not whether or not they could, open carry or actually possess a gun. The issue becomes, is the gun concealed or is the gun not concealed? And as a defense attorney, that gets very burdensome to try to say, well, he ran to this grocery store at 2 a.m., he didn't realize that there was a gun in the glove compartment box, or whatever the case may be that made you pull him over and search the car. But the one thing that I definitely want to see more of is gun education. We don't have that. And, I don't personally own a gun, but my son is 21 years old. I took him as soon as he turned 21 out to get that education, to get that training. For one thing, so that if he did end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, he would not have to go through the court system, because he has had the required training and he is allowed to possess a gun regardless of if it's open carried or concealed. But the thing that I will say time and time again is that we know that these people are around guns. We know that for some strange reason they've been charged with a gun crime, and so safety is important. And so we need to create some type of a class so that they know how to handle the gun, so that we know that they can properly have the gun. Maybe change some of the rules so that they can then go out and get their license to carry and come back after so long and show proof that they've done that, so that we won't have that issue again. But I think that that's another component, of that issue would be safety. That's a big thing for me, especially with children and juveniles being around guns. And it's safety. There's too many deaths that have occurred because a kid touched a gun or someone had a gun laid out. And so I think that the education piece is something that we definitely should look at as well.
Hal Brecken is watching us. We're so glad. Shelly Santry's here. Hi, Shelly.
Hi, Shelly.
Hi, Shelly.
Hunter Sadich says hi, Shelly. Shelly Santry says hi, Hunter. Angela Lead is watching.
Right.
Wow.
Shelly
Melanie
should be-
Armstrong. We've
Shelley-
got mayoral candidates
Right.
tuning in today.
Shelly should be out trying to make jingles for all of us
Why
instead
don't
of
you
being on
do
live.
that?
Like, get off
Why don't
live,
you do-
Shelly.
Well, she
Go
started,
make us a jingle.
She started her greeting to me as Yo-Yo Tara.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. First bar.
Yeah, we all know. So Jason Ashley
think we
Gardner, who is developing a wonderful, and this is one of the things I wanted to
Yes,
ask you
all right,
about,
Jason.
wonderful organization that is going to result in the first LGBTQ youth shelter called Sweet Evening Breeze, and we're so excited. It's coming up in
Yes.
2019. So you're dealing, Judge Delahanty, with kids who are coming in off the street who've been thrown out of their homes because their parents don't agree with their sexual orientation, and we don't have a place for them to go yet. What do you do? Where do you send them? What do you tell them to do to survive?
I'm not sure that they really come through the court system unless they are arrested for some issue, or if they're under 18 and perhaps, out after midnight or something, and then the police would pick them up and try to take them back to their homes, and then they perhaps would say, I'm not welcome there, and so I can't go there. And I think it's, again, fortunate that we are, an urban community, and we have people such as the man you suggested, who is, making provisions for these children. So, but it's not. I mean, the issue certainly is a current issue that needs to be dealt with, and I would say that society as a whole is becoming more tolerant of LGBTQ.
There are so many letters.
Right.
Chris Hartman said to me one
whisper.
time, LGBTQXIAV. He said, I can't even remember them all,
Right.
so don't worry about it.
And you would think that, particularly in an urban area, there may be more kids who are, questioning and trying to understand their sexuality, and we're probably more open and embracing of that, the whole concept, and they're
Yes.
attempting to deal with their lives. And it's fortunate that we have people like your volunteer who is going to have a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And I would presume that the fallback position now would just be the safe places that we have in the community, where homeless children could go to a safe place and feel protected. But that doesn't really give. That's a temporary shelter. It has no
Right.
long-term solution. But and it's fortunate that we have the resources.
Yeah, hopefully this is going to be a much longer
Can I chime in?
You may.
Okay, so it's totally different the way that you talked about, like in Kristina said about the outlying counties. And because I come with that family court piece, and I'm over in circuit court a lot as well. I am a parent's attorney and a guardian ad litem in LaRue County. And so things like
LaRue County.
Yes, it's only
Yeah,
10 minutes from Hardin.
Right,
It's
man.
Judge Reed. He's amazing.
Yeah, done real travel.
Yes. And so there are a lot of things that are district court jurisdictionally, like child support and your dependency, neglect, and abuse cases and your status hearings and things like that, that in Jefferson County are usually handled by the family court. So like your wife would have handled those cases. But what can happen is if those children are under the age of 18 and they're misplaced, then someone can make a phone call because they're being neglected, and that is a form of abuse. And so once they get in the system and it's explained why they can't go home and what's happened, then they become wards of the state. And then at that point in time, someone will check in, which is horrible, but they can be placed in foster care and foster homes. I've seen it happen where it is a warm and welcoming environment. If they go through that process, which is hard, but they don't have to be homeless, but they give them therapy. And so and it's paid for by the state. And so they will go through therapy. Their family can have therapy to try to do some type of a reunification or whatnot. And what happens is let's say that they age out and they turn 18. They have the option of putting themselves back into the system so they can stay up until the age of 21. I actually had a female that did that, and by the time she turned 21, she did have a kid, but we were able to get her into U of L, and she actually went to the Family Scholar House. And so her life turned completely around because she had that, and she also was able, through funding, if you're a foster child, you get free tuition, in-state, college tuition in Kentucky. So
leave it to her to find a way to get free,
right.
free tuition.
I'm all
We're
about
back to tuition
right,
reimbursement.
working. So I mean, there are different ways, but again, for people that don't really understand the intricacies of the court system the way that we do, it's a district court issue, but you may talk to a judge that's a district court judge in the outlying county that would be able to answer that quickly, whereas a lot of those things and those helps are more so handled in district court, but under the family court realm.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions, one of which is, Ellen Jones wants to know, curious as to what age is considered for a youth to be at home unsupervised?
I don't think there's a legal age
There
in
is no
Kentucky.
legal, are there no
is
laws
none.
on the books?
I think it just comes down to you can't put a child in a caretaking role. I think
Okay.
they have to be maybe 13 before they can be in a caretaking role.
Which
but
means
there's,
like a babysitter?
Yes.
Okay.
But as long as, from my research, As long as that child is able to function and able to take care of themselves, and you feel that that child can be left at home alone, then that's okay. However, there still can be safety calls, and the cabinet will go out, to make sure that that's true. But right now, there is no, from what research I've done, being in the system, there is no legal age to say when a child can be left at home alone.
And speaking of the Aero Fund, Rebecca Eves is watching us. Thank you, Rebecca, for tuning in. We appreciate you. Gary Sipes has also come along, and we really are grateful that all of you who are tuning in today are giving support to the show, because we want people to get engaged. One of the biggest things that we're all talking about, everybody's nodding their heads around me. Even Judge Delahanty's wife is nodding her head. The bartender's nodding his head. Everybody wants to see us get out and vote and participate, because, my parents used to say to me, my parents were both World War II veterans, and they used to say to me, voting is a privilege, not necessarily a right. And I always thought that was interesting, because they defended their country in World War II, and they fought for us to have the right to vote and the right to live in a free country. And so to be able to go out, and I know a lot of people, Ellen was telling me earlier, she's voted early. A ton of people are voting early.
Awesome.
What a great idea. Why didn't this happen 20 years ago? But
Sure.
now you can go to all these different locations around town, and you can find a polling place, and it's every day of the week. It's like 8 to 4, and there's even some time on Saturday, which is fantastic. So I think the question that Jürgen Tossman has brought up over and over again is there's not a lot of centrally located information about things. And so I would look up, I wanted to find out who all the judicial candidates were. So I'm taken to, the Secretary of State's page, or Kentucky.gov or something, and it's got all this stuff, and it's all very disorganized kind of to me, and it's like candidate filings, judicial filings, this filing, that. What do you look under? So I think one of the things that I'd like to see happen is for the state to get a simplified clearinghouse for information about the judiciary.
Yes,
because it's not hard to find out who's running for state, representative or senator or governor or whatever, but you guys kind of get left out in the cold.
Well, if I can chime in, and I'm sure everybody else at the table has gotten this, one of the most confusing things that I've ran into with voters as I meet them throughout the county is, I'll say I'm Kristina Garvey, I'm running for District Court, Division 3. And they're like, oh, is that in my district? I don't know if I live in your division.
Right.
And I'm like, it is, all of our judicial races, it is a county-wide, nonpartisan race. So all of us will be on everyone's ballot in Jefferson County. The division basically is just a way to say that I'm not running against Sean and Lisa. And there's 17 district court judges, so we're all broken into, we all have a number. And there's only 3 district court judges that will be contested on the ballot
And
in
everybody's
November.
got their name tags on, but I'm just going to run it again because, let's see.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, these two are really prepared. Ready? Christina's running against Tracy, Kristina Garvey and Tracy Davis, and Lisa Langford is running against Sean Delahanty, who is our sitting judge. So just so you know who everybody is. And I also want to bring up the point that I'd love to hear just what a general day of yours is on the campaign trail, Judge Delahanty. You're at court, obviously, but what are you doing to campaign?
Well, and again, we do have, an obligation to perform the job, so we need to run our dockets. And in this day and age, campaigns have changed. You really have to have what you call a digital presence.
Yes.
You have to be on the internet and through the various social medias to effectively reach the voters. We don't spend as much time raising money as the partisan candidates do, because the partisan candidates run on policy issues, and therefore those people who have an interest in a particular policy may help them raise money for the purpose of getting elected. But for instance, today I am here at 3:30. I have an event with the Women's Political Caucus at 5:30. It's at the University Club at the University of Louisville, and from there I'm going to Khalid's, way out Dixie Highway and Valley Station they have some kind of an event where they're raising money for cancer.
I love
And
it.
it's a very interesting thing, and it's a charitable gaming thing, and the pot is now $220,000.
It's at the bar, isn't it?
I think
is.
that's
It
what
is.
Angela Lee goes to
Yeah, it's a
every week.
restaurant. It is.
It's a restaurant. You got to buy
She
tickets.
does. She talks about that too.
Who's this?
Angela Lee goes. I think she goes.
She
to that.
does.
was
She
there last
goes
time.
out there.
Yeah.
She was
Yes.
there last time.
She takes
Dwight
toilet
Whitten
paper
with
or
Tony
beans
and-
or something with her. I don't know what she's doing.
Well,
Trucks full of all kinds
Well-
of stuff. She
Well, they-
says Monday night is the big
Yes,
night.
Monday
Yep.
night.
And they draw one name each Monday.
each Monday.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and they've had them in Los Angeles and Chicago that have gotten up into the $1 million.
Wow,
So-
that's amazing.
But I think all the funds that are raised locally are spent locally.
Yeah, that's
And
very cool.
so it's very interesting. And plus, I know a bunch of people out there in Valley Station, and it's kind of nice just to check in.
Very nice. Brad Leedy's watching from Bridgehaven Mental Health Services. Sue Knable, who is a cancer survivor herself of several different cancers. Glad you guys are with us. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Let's see what time it is. It's 4:50. What is it, Donna? 4:56.
Oh, wow.
Your
Yes.
phone's
Oh.
dead.
It's
Okay.
4:56.
Good,
My
because my glasses broke and I'm wearing really old
456.
glasses. Thank you, and I can't see.
I've
just
got the
about
large print.
anything. There you go, the large print. Tracy, do you have to believe a client to represent them?
Absolutely not. As a defense attorney?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's not my job to find facts. It's the juror's job to find facts. It's the judge's job to find facts. A lot of times people get upset with that, but as a defense attorney, you take the facts, and the muster is can they prove? And so there are times where you sit back and you watch the case that's before you. You watch what the Commonwealth attorney over in circuit court or what the county attorneys present to you. You go through that and you work on what your defenses are going to be. One of the things, like with ethics, a lot of times lawyers get a very, very bad rep as people thinking that they're not ethical or they're not doing this or they may lie or they may conceal, because the law says, the ethics say that you can come to me as my client and say, I killed 3 people. And I can be in court and watch a murder trial of those 3 people that you just told me that you killed. And I cannot disclose that information because of attorney-client privilege. And so the guard of that is that clients have to be able to trust you. They have to be able to talk to you. They have to be able to tell you things. Now, is there a situation to where, my beliefs can affect representation? Then at that point in time, I file a motion to withdraw from that case.
Oh,
And I
darn.
just let the judge know, for whatever reason, there's not a meeting of the minds. I don't have to disclose that information
Why?
within the case. But if I feel that there is a disconnect, or if I know for a fact that there is something that I just can't morally deal with or morally handle, and it's going to affect my representation, then at that time I look at myself. You may want to call some people to ask them, how do I move forward? You definitely let your client know that, and then you just withdraw from the case and let them move on so that they can have effective counsel. But
I was always amazed at how, and this is just a specific, but how people stayed on the Malignado case. I mean, with the circumstances of that,
Yes,
how
yes.
heartbreaking was that?
it's very difficult.
Lisa, I want to ask you this question, and Tracy actually suggested that I talk to you guys about this, so I'm stealing your thunder. But
Okay.
For those who are unfamiliar with the November 6th ballot question, could you please explain the proposed, or any of you can jump in, the proposed Kentucky Marsy's Law Crime Victim Rights Amendment to our state constitution, and why it is or is not more effective than the current Kentucky Crime Victim Bill of Rights?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I can't explain the law. I know there's been some question about the language and whether it's too broad or whether it's ready to actually go to vote based on the way it's been written. What I will tell you is that victims are very important to me. I have talked to thousands of victims over my 14 years, and we place finding justice for them at the top of the list. We make sure that every victim is spoken with, they're treated with dignity and respect, as Kristina mentioned personally. I believe that our victims are owed, justice, but I do believe that we've got to make the law doable, I guess is the best way to say it.
Fair.
We can't put so many restrictions or go the other way and make it so broad that there's no way we would ever be able to satisfy the requirements of the law. So that's the best way I can answer that question at this time.
And I think I mean, Lisa's hit on some of it. I truly do think that there is a victim's bill of rights. I think there might be some things that could be better. But the last thing that we want legislation to do is to, in the end, make things worse as far as trying to get things resolved and trying to get cases done and justice done. And I think that some of the language in there is written possibly as maybe someone who's not in the courthouse every day, and realizing some of the logistics of things. But obviously, victims are a top priority, and their voices should be heard, and there should be some things changed. But I think that the language, as any of us have seen in anything in the law, language is very important, and so I think that's some of the things that they're trying to make better.
We're out of time. Judge Delahanty, why should we elect you?
Well, I have the depth and breadth of experience. My 20 years on the bench, there's no learning curve for me. I have the life experiences and the legal experiences that make for a good judge. And I've touched a lot of lives, and you can ask some of those people about their experience.
Ms. Tracy. Tracy Davis.
Well, I think that based on my experience, the type of cases that I've handled, the fact that I've been in front of all 40 judges that preside here in Jefferson County, as well as the ones in the outlying counties, the fact that I've been in district court, circuit court, family court, and federal court, and I come with a plethora of also life experiences. I think that differentiates me for this race at this time. I think that I bring a lot of hard work, diligence, and compassion to the bench, and I think that that's something that I would like to see more of. And so I think that if that's what you're looking for, when you're looking for who will be the next person to preside in your court, that you should flip that ballot over and vote Tracy Davis.
Flip the ballot over, for God's sake. Don't forget. Lisa Langford.
Yes, I am a veteran prosecutor, as I've mentioned several times, 14 years. I've also done civil law for 5 years for the county attorney's office as well. Also have the diversity of having worked for GE, Humana, the USDA. So I come from a very balanced background as well, and I believe that I have the temperament, that I have the education, the knowledge, and the respect for my community to do a great job for Jefferson County.
That's beautiful. Kristina Garvey.
I believe that I am the best candidate for this race because I've handled thousands of district court cases. I've served this community prior to law school as a coach, as a teacher at one of our local grade schools. I've got the background, I've got the experience needed to be a good district court judge. I've worked for the county attorney's office for the last few years. Public service is very important to me. It's something that I'm passionate about. I understand how these cases affect all the people in our community. If it's not traffic or some of the criminal stuff, you might be in civil, and if nothing else, at some point, all of us are probably going to hit probate court. So I would ask for your vote. I definitely think I'm the right choice for this, and it's Kristina Garvey.
Thank you guys for watching us. We appreciate all of you who tuned in at the end there. Karen and Jerry Tolson, great musician. Laura Swinney and Terry Howard and Tim Keefe, thank you guys all so much. We've got another great Take It From Tara coming up on Wednesday, but I'm going to surprise you. So just keep your eyes open for it.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Judge Sean Delahanty and Tracy Davis and Lisa Langford and Kristina Garvey. And Donna Delahanty. Do you want to hit the stop button, Donna? You just go ahead. You see that little button right on there? Just hit that one button. Got it?